Jason Corbett, originally from Limerick, was found dead at his home in...
A man died, but a man also attacked my daughter.
Today's case brings us to the USA and to North Carolina. An eastern coast US state known for both its mountains and beaches. It boasts 300 miles of beautiful coastline. You can explore the natural scenic beauty, or you can try one of the 500 golf courses in the state. It is also known to be the birthplace for some of our beloved treats, like Pepsi the drink and Krispy Kreme donuts. Our story today begins with Jason Corbett, an Irish-born man from the city of Limerick, born from a large family of 8 siblings, Jason being the youngest, along with his twin Wayne. After finishing school, Jason moved out of the family home, and he moved in with his sister Tracy and her partner Dave. The three of them got on really well, and in 1997, Jason met Margaret Fitzpatrick, affectionately called Mags. They hit it off straight away, and they eventually moved in with each other. Jason and Margaret would get married in June 2003, and in 2004 the couple welcomed their very first child, Jack. And not far behind, 2 years later, they welcomed a baby girl into the world, and her name Sarah. The family of 4 had then moved into their dream home, and life was going good. And then disaster struck. Just 12 weeks after having their little girl Sarah, on November the 21st, 2006, Margaret had an asthma attack, and she died en route to the hospital. This was devastating for Jason and the kids. He had a lot of support from family and friends after his wife's sudden death, and this was truly needed, as he was now going to be bringing up his 2 kids without Mags. Despite the continued support from family, Jason decided to hire a live-in au pair to help him with housework and childcare, to relieve some of the stress that came with being a single dad. And he eventually hired a 25-year-old American woman named Molly Martens. And with this, Molly flew from America to Ireland to take up this job in March 2008, and she came on a one-way ticket. Everything went well. She was polite and good with the kids. She was quiet and didn't share anything too personal with Jason. Molly up and left her life in America to come take this job. She had a fiancé named Keith back home, who was oblivious to her decision to stay in Ireland. Later he said Molly suffered with her mental health, and when they had a miscarriage, it went out of control. Shortly after Molly's arrival to Ireland, Jason and herself became intimately involved, and then Molly went back to America. When back, her and Jason were exchanging emails with each other. Jason expressed his concern with the relationship, as she worked for him and she lived in his house. He didn't think it was fair on the kids. Molly, however, she had her own thoughts. She said if they loved each other, they should just be together. And in August, Molly came back over to Ireland to start the relationship fresh. They wanted to start it off right, and Molly wouldn't work for Jason anymore. And from there, the relationship began to flourish. Molly and Jason and the 2 kids moved their life over to America, and they eventually got married in 2011 in Tennessee. The wedding was tense. The 2 families were not fond of one another due to the relationship the couple had. Jason's family saw Molly as a manipulator and demanding, a total different person from when Jason first introduced Molly to them. Molly's dad, Tom Martens, disliked Jason from the beginning, and he disliked Jason's family, as he thought the Irish family were rude and they cursed too much. Paul, who was Jason's best friend and was acting as the best man for the second time, he kept telling Jason at the ceremony, "It's not too late, you can back out now." But it was obvious Jason didn't see what his family and friends seen in Molly. He was deeply in love, and what Paul and Jason's whole family didn't know, the couple were already married, and they had done so in a private civil ceremony. And the wedding they were all at now was just for show. After the wedding, Jason's family went home, and Jason and his new wife, along with his kids, settled into their new house in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Jason was able to transfer jobs from Ireland to America, making the move stress-free. And because his house back in Ireland sold, Jason was able to pay for their new immaculate house in full, and this would leave them mortgage-free. The family enjoyed life in the US for a time. The kids would start in a local school and daycare, and Molly began working part-time. All was going well, and as a bonus, the couple began making friends with their neighbours. However, eventually, when Molly got comfortable with the neighbours, she would tell them Jason was a big drinker, and he would hit her, showing bruises to back her stories up. But what they didn't know was that Molly was being manipulating. She would hide random things on Jason in the house, like car keys, making him think he was going insane. And along with this, Molly would place recording devices around the house and in Jason's car, later releasing them as proof that he was abusive toward her. And by 2014, the couple realised their relationship was falling apart, and it wasn't working, and Jason had planned on moving back to Ireland with his kids. He even invested a sum of cash in a childcare business to have a reliable income stream when he would arrive home to Ireland. And by 2015, Jason had put arrangements in place to go home in August that year, and had begun booking flights to Ireland. And the icing on the cake for the end of their relationship was an argument the couple had on the 1st of August at a neighbour's barbecue, where Molly called Jason fat in front of everyone. He got upset and he left the barbecue and walked home on his own. The next day, which was the 2nd of August, which was a Saturday, the suitcases were packed and ready to go for Jason and the kids to return back to his life in Ireland. Molly, seeing this, got visibly upset, and she called her parents in Knoxville to come and stay for the weekend, and so they did. Her mother and father, Sharon and Tom Martens, who was a former FBI agent of 30 plus years, arrived to the house that evening, which came as a surprise to Jason. They had pizza for dinner and had a few beers that night, and then they went to bed. It would only be a few hours later the police arrived to the house, reporting to a call from Tom Martens. Tom and his wife Sharon stayed in the guest room downstairs in the basement. This was above Jason and Molly's room. Tom said to the responding officer he heard an argument from above. He then grabbed a baseball bat that was beside his bag and he ran up the stairs. This baseball bat was a Louisville Slugger Tom had brought as a present for Jack. When Tom arrived at the master bedroom, he said he found Jason with his hands wrapped around Molly's neck, while saying, "I'm going to kill her." Tom continued saying, Jason placed Molly in a headlock and began going toward the bathroom with her. This is when Tom swung the bat at Jason, and he kept swinging until he was down. Tom said he and Molly both left the room and then called emergency services, saying Jason was unconscious. The 911 call lasted 15 minutes, but when the emergency services arrived, Jason had already passed from his injuries.
Davidson County 911, what is the address of your emergency?
My name is Tom Martens. I'm at 160 Panther Creek Court, and we need help.
Okay. What's going on there?
My daughter's husband, my son-in-law, got in a fight with my daughter. I intervened, and I think he's in bad shape. We need help.
Okay, what do you mean he's in bad shape? He's hurt?
I mean, he's bleeding all over, and I may have killed him.
The kids would sleep through the whole ordeal. Molly's account was that Sarah had woken up from a nightmare and woke Jason up. Molly put Sarah back to bed, but Jason was angry at Molly, as he thought Sarah was too old for that, and he instigated the fight with Molly. Jason's family found out about the death of their loved one through a quick phone call with Molly's mum Sharon, and it was a quick call. She said Molly and Jason had an argument and Jason unfortunately passed away. Now obviously the Corbett family had questions. They tried to get in touch with Molly and her family in America to no avail. So the Corbett family took matters into their own hands and they arrived to North Carolina within hours of Jason's death. Molly would try to have Jason's body cremated 24 hours after his death. However, the Corbett family stopped this from happening. Eventually, Molly released Jason's body to the Corbett so they could take Jason back to Limerick to have a proper burial. Tracy, Jason's sister, entered a custody battle over Jack and Sarah. However, within 30 hours of Jason's death, unknown to the Corbett family, Molly applied for custody and guardianship of the kids. So Tracy and the Corbett family arranged solicitors to fight this, and on the 14th of August 2015, the first hearing relating to custody began, and it took place in the Davidson County Courthouse. It was here Jason's will was read out. It named Tracy and her husband Dave custody of the children if anything were to happen to him, and nowhere in the will was Molly mentioned. Tracy and Molly both gave evidence arguing their rights to the children, and at the end of the hearing, an order granting temporary custody was put in place for Tracy Lynch and her husband to look after the kids, and the temporary custody was soon made permanent. And this was such an emotional time for the kids, as you can imagine. On the 23rd of August, the funeral was held for Jason in Limerick at his local church of Our Lady Queen of Peace. Hundreds who knew Jason and his family attended. A while after the kids returned to Ireland, Molly done an exclusive interview with the Irish Independent, which is an Irish daily newspaper and online publication. She went in on her feelings about the kids being taken out of her custody, stating the kids were treated like property and shouldn't have been taken away from their mother, referring to herself. As the months went on and the kids settled back into their life in Ireland, going back to school and receiving counselling, the Corbett family returned their attention to Jason's death and what exactly happened. You see, initially this was thought to be an open and shut case of self-defence. But this may not be the case, as when investigators looked into this further, they realised this case needs to be reopened. A detective found the initial description of the struggle that the Martens stated was not consistent with what was found at the scene, and the sudden change of plans that fateful night from Tom and Sharon Martens was odd. They never usually show up at such quick notice, and additionally to this, there were questions regarding the baseball bat that was used by Tom Martens. Tom had got Jack a baseball bat not too long previously, so why would he re-gift the same present? With this, they also obtained search warrants for social media, phone records and banking records of both Molly and Jason. And it was discovered Jason's laptop was missing from the home, as was his phone. And Molly also had a crime scene cleanup crew scrub the house quickly after the murder, so any evidence needed by the investigators would need to be analysed through the original crime scene photos. And with this, on the 4th of January 2016, court proceedings into the wrongful death of Jason Corbett began in Davidson County Courthouse in North Carolina. The father and daughter duo, Tom and Molly Martens, were both charged with second-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter, the latter of which will be thrown out. After this, both were released on bail and had to hand out $190,000 each to the court. A jury of 12 were decided upon, and the trial into the wrongful death of Jason Corbett began on Tuesday the 25th of July 2016. The prosecutor said they would show beyond a reasonable doubt that Molly and her father Tom had beaten Jason Corbett to death, while the defence teams insisted that the Martens acted in self-defence. The 911 operator took to the stand. She received a call from Tom and Molly that night. She said they were calm and composed, and she talked them through CPR, but the pair were not out of breath. If CPR was carried out correctly, they would be noticeably tired and out of breath, and this of course could be due to the circumstances. The next day, the jury were shown images, and the images were of Jason in the aftermath of his death. His skull had been shattered. He received at least 12 blows to the head, and injuries were found on his legs, arms and body also. And low amounts of alcohol was found on Jason, along with a prescription drug. The first responding officer and the first responding paramedics took to the stand and spoke on what they saw on arrival. They said there was a lot of blood, and the upstairs floor where the incident took place was a mess. Both Tom and Molly refused treatment from the hospital and did not appear to be injured. Molly had a red mark on her neck, and she was described as rubbing it in a scrubbing motion every few minutes. Other than this, there were no marks, cuts or bruises on the pair, and the prosecution stated this was unlikely as Jason was 6 foot tall and he was 225 pounds in weight, which is 16 stone. He would have put up more of a fight, or if Jason instigated this, there would have been more than a red mark around Molly's neck. Forensic evidence was then presented. The black baseball bats and a paving brick found in the house were shown to the court. Both were found in the master bedroom, with Jason's blood on them, and they were dusted for fingerprints. Molly Martens gave the police a statement the morning of the attack. It was read out. She said the paving brick was on the nightstand and she hit Jason with it during the struggle. And the presence of the brick was questioned. Why would a brick be on your nightstand? Molly said she and the kids were painting bricks and she had taken that one inside to let it dry. Tracy Corbett, Jason's sister, has her say on the events that night while being interviewed on an Ireland talk show.
Well, I believe that Molly Martens planned to kill Jason, and that all the evidence pointed towards it. I was disappointed there wasn't a first-degree charge. I know that Jason had a bag packed with the kids' clothes. He was going to leave. He'd been looking up flights, that he had been drugged, and the toxicology report shows the drugs in his system. They were prescribed to Molly Martens on the Friday before Jason was murdered.
Tom Martens took to the stand 13 days into the trial. He said he felt his daughter's life was in danger that night, and that is why he carried out the attack. Tom and Molly's story never changed throughout the course of the whole investigation and the court case, and it was said Molly had nothing to gain in Jason's death. She wasn't named in his will, however later on it was found Jason had life insurance and named Molly as the beneficiary. But it is not known if she knew about this. On the 8th of August, both Molly Martens and Tom Martens were both found guilty of second-degree murder. When this was read out, Molly dropped down to her knees in tears, and the duo would serve a minimum of 20 years in prison each. They immediately issued an appeal. However, the following statement was not allowed into evidence by the judge, and the appeal was denied. And here's the statement. At some point, Tom Martens had a conversation with Mr. Fitzpatrick, the father of Jason Corbett's wife, and he believed Jason was somehow responsible for his daughter Margaret's death.
I thought I was just making polite chit-chat, polite conversation. I said, what do you think of old Jason? And his response was, I think he killed my daughter. And I go, whoa, I'm not really expecting that kind of thing.
The Corbett family denied this conversation ever happened, and the pair geared up for a long stint in prison. However, this would run short, as in 2022, the North Carolina Court of Appeals overturned the convictions of Molly and Tom, stating errors were made and it denied them a fair trial. And the pair are now released on bail since March 2022, and they are awaiting a retrial which will likely take place in late to midsummer 2023. Once a loving relationship turned into a trial for second-degree murder. This case is an emotional roller coaster for all involved, especially Sarah and Jack. They had to adjust to a world without their father and mother, and have to yet again go through another trial for the death of their father. This being said, Sarah and Jack, now teenagers, living a fantastic life in Limerick, with lots of family around them for support. They both continue to take the side of their late dad, Jason. Thoughts go out to the whole Corbett family who have lost their loved one. I'll keep you updated on the trial when it takes place. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.